Hey, how's it going, everybody? He's Scott Rickenbach. I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are the weekend winners, the weekend warriors. We're DocSports.com, Scott and Scott show with Rickenbach and Spreitzer. This is show number 10 already. Hard to believe. And of course, we're going to be here throughout the football season doing some early value videos coming up once the season gets underway. So be sure to check it out. We're going to talk a lot today. We got Saturday, Sunday baseball featuring the Phillies and the Twins. We're going to preview the Texas Longhorns in college football, the Buffalo Bills wins total in the NFL. But Scott, I am going to jump right into it here. And I want to talk a little bit about those Ohio State Buckeyes, or the Ohio State Buckeyes,
yes,
as they prefer to be called. And Ohio State's over under wins total. I think people who don't follow this really closely, Scott, are going to think, wow, only 9.5. You know, just the casual fan or the non-betting fan, that wins total is sitting at 9.5. The over, big juice, minus $1.80. The under plus $1.50. And there are a few books out there where you can play alternate wins totals and adjust the wins on, you know, how you want to play them. If you get to that to 10.5, all of a sudden that price becomes much cheaper if you like the over there. But anyway, that's where it stands for the most part. And tough slate, man, tough schedule. The most talented roster to me in college football. I'm not breaking any news there, but I feel comfortable saying that. And at the same time, that schedule is a beast. Scott, home games against Oregon and Michigan, road tests that include Texas, Iowa, Indiana, USC. We'll throw Nebraska in there, I guess, because it's right before Michigan, and who knows, maybe they can get their crap together. A couple years ago in Columbus, they actually gave Ohio State a real scare. And again, Ohio State could be looking ahead a little bit to the battle with the Maize and Blues. So you're talking a lot of tough teams on the slate. I'm telling you what, if they win 10 games, you might as well etch either Julian Sayin on the Heisman or Jeremiah Smith. Scott, your thoughts on this year's Buckeyes?
Well, yeah, and Scott, as you've mentioned before, we don't talk before we do this show, but this is what I want to say is, first off, I handicapped or looked at Ohio State, of course, before then, looking at, hey, what is this win total and where's the juice on it? This is a very high juice, of course, on the 9.5. They do have a tough schedule, including games at Texas and Indiana, but as usual, they're loaded with talent. And the thing is, I believe it's been 15 years since the Buckeyes have failed to win at least 10 games. So even if they only split with the Longhorns and the Hoosiers, where are their other two losses going to come from? 3 losses out of a dozen games? I don't know. Even with that tough schedule, I'm having trouble finding those 3 losses. But they did lose a lot of production on defense, but they're very well coached on that side of the ball. Plenty of talent there, of course, on defense as well. One of my concerns on offense is, even with all the talent they have at the skill positions, can their offensive line gel? They've had some offensive, that's been one of their areas of instability in recent times. Not that there's been much wrong with the Buckeyes, of course, in recent years, but this is something I would watch closely early this season. And all I would say here is that, you know, I wouldn't be comfortable going with that 10.5. At 9.5 with that high juice, it would be a very small bet for me. So it's just like a slight lean for me. I just can't go against the Buckeyes not getting to 10 wins here this season.
Yeah, I can't bet them under 9.5, you know, so I'm like you. I think they do go over that total. I'm not willing to bump it up to 10.5. I'm not, but I do think they get 10 wins. Am I going to be shocked if this team's 11-2 or 12-1 at the end of the regular season? Absolutely not. Yeah, I will not be shocked because of the talent. They did lose a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football, but they tend to reload. And if you look at a couple of losses last year, man, it was because it was the offensive line, as you mentioned. The offensive line got kind of slowed down by 2 defensive lines that happened to look like NFL defensive lines. It's like everybody along those defensive fronts for the 2 games they lost. I mean, they were just one NFL future player after another. And so they're not going to see that each and every week. And like you, I think it goes over 9.5. I'm not willing to go up to 10.5. But I think, you know, sometimes minus $1.80 isn't a bad price. I mean, you know, when I used to bet a lot more with UFC, I don't do too much anymore, but, you know, you'd lay 280, you'd lay 250, 310, things of that nature, or in boxing in general. So again, minus $1.80. And folks, as I always say, as long as you can afford to lose, then you can go ahead and make those kind of bets and lay a lot of juice with teams. If you can't afford to lose, you shouldn't be betting at all. Just watch us for entertainment purposes and go from there. The second game of the season for the Ohio State Buckeyes, you mentioned they're playing at Texas, and the Longhorns wins total is 9.5 too. You see the over at plus $1.20, the under at minus $1.40. And by the way, these prices on these over-unders are they're current as of about 7 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, August 14th, just so you know where we got these numbers. But Scott, I'll tell you what, the Longhorns have just one true road game until November 7th. They do have the neutral site game with the Oklahoma Sooners, obviously. That's on October 10th. They travel to Knoxville 2 weeks prior. But that's it for travel, really, until the first weekend of November, November 7th.
Yeah, so that could give this team some time to gel. And we saw last year, so the first thing I'll talk about with Texas is, last year they had that tougher 3-2 start, but then they did go, including their bowl win, 7-1 the rest of the way. And when you look at how their season went, 2 of their 3 losses were at Ohio State and at Georgia. So this season, they get the Buckeyes at home in Austin, as we just talked about, and they do not face the Bulldogs. However, this is a team, they've got to get that ground game going. I know they made some big moves in the transfer portal with some running backs, but and also they overhauled their offensive line, but can they gel quickly enough, that offensive line, when they have to face Ohio State in the second game of the season? Also have some concerns about the depth with this team, and particularly on defense. If they get some injuries on defense, it's going to be tough for them because they're not that deep defensively. And can this ground game on the offense get going? It really has to improve a lot for them to do much. And another concern for me with Texas is just overall, they do tend to struggle. Is Manning going to be better in this regard? But they do tend to struggle when facing those stronger teams. They just don't look good matching up with them. And, they do face also Ole Miss this season, who I think is going to be a pretty solid team that surprises. And then they, like you mentioned, early in the season, their schedule's not bad as far as road games, but then they have games at LSU, which could end up being a night game, which is tough at LSU, and also at Texas A&M later in the season, plus that Sooners game, like you mentioned. And even the Florida game is not going to be an ultra easy matchup. They lost to them last year. So considering all of the above, I actually like the under quite a bit in this one. I'm really anti-Texas this year. They're going to have a solid season, but I think they could disappoint their fans this year just for those reasons I mentioned.
I like the wide receiving core. It's going to be fantastic. It should be. I don't have a problem with the offense, and I like the hiring of Will Muschamp for the defensive side of the football. He's going to help. But, like you said, you mentioned even a couple of those home games. I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe, and maybe you have it in front of you, that Ole Miss is in Austin.
Yes.
And at the same time, I'm not going to be shocked if the Rebels pull an upset there, like you said. So
yes,
I've actually got them going 9-3, so I lean towards the under. If I like a team to be a half game away from its wins total, and I got to lay $140, I tend to leave it alone. But if I had to play this right now, I'm leaning towards Texas under 9.5 wins. And of course, if they can somehow get by the Buckeyes, then all of a sudden they're looking like they can get to 10 or more. And I know a lot of people, man, they're talking about Texas top 5, top 6 potential national championship game. And I just look at that schedule. If Arch Manning can hit that great receiving core consistently, and when he's up against very talented defenses, which is something he hasn't done. And listen, I know he was better late in the season last year than he was early on. He certainly didn't look like a Manning early on again last year. If he can play more like he did late in the season, excuse me, this year from the get-go, then they've got a chance to get to those 10 wins and make it to a playoff game. But I got them under the total here. Wanted to talk real quickly before we jump into the Buffalo Bills and their wins total, that you can check out all of our plays, Scott's plays, my plays on our individual pages over at DocSports.com. With my football plays, listen, we're looking to cash again for the 3rd straight year of a big cash job after going 125-89 and up over 13,000 for $100 per unit bettors the last 2 years. And of course, Scott, you can tell them about what you got going on. I get real busy week 2. And I'm just going to tell people, I want to be candid, because if you do jump on board, you might get 1 or 2 plays in week 1 college, 1 or 2 plays in week 1 NFL. But week 2, we kick it into gear and we start pumping out more plays. Scott, I truly believe, at least this, I tell everybody, do what works for you best, right? For me, it's during this nil era where there's a ton of transfers every offseason. For me, it's better for me to sit back and take some notes in week 1 of college football than to jump out and have 7 or 8 plays. So that's how I've been doing it. It's working for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do the same thing, Scott. And like you said, I've always kind of leaned that direction, but especially now, like you said, in the new era, the way the players are changing, man, it's important to see how these teams really look when they play that first week. And that helps a lot. So I do it the same way. And Scott, I had a big 2024 season in football. And then in 2025, I was doing great all the way up until just before Christmas. And guys know I'm 100% transparent. That's why I've been able to survive in this industry for more than 2 decades. And I had a tough finish to the season last year. So ended up down a little bit on the year after being up almost 4,000 heading into Christmas time. So it's going to be a big season all the way through this year, just like my 2024. And I'm excited about it, ready to get after it.
It happens, man. I mean, you lose, you have a losing streak or a losing, few weeks or a month or whatever, you really start hitting the books, so to speak, to use an old term. 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was at Docs, I had a real bad start to the football season, college and pro. I mean, really bad. I'm like 1-9 or something like that in the first 2 weeks. And that's what made me go back to what I used to do several years ago, which is, all right, let's settle down a little bit. And let's go just a couple of plays, that first week of the season, and then kick it into gear after that. And again, it's produced really well. And I'm not going away from what works this year either. So, but sometimes you got to take one on the chin to get back on track and be where you are. And I think we'll be fine going into this particular season for the 3rd straight year. All right, Buffalo Bills over under wins total sitting at 10.5. The Bills have won fewer than 11 games. Or haven't won, I should say they've won at least 11 games every year going back to 2019. That was the last time they didn't win 11 games. They won 10 that year. I like the move with Joe Brady, the new head coach. It was time to move away from Sean McDermott, Scott. At least that's what I felt, and a lot of people, obviously. The offense is going to be loaded. They go out and they get Jim Leonard as far as the DC. Plays a lot of 34 looks or coaches a lot of 34 looks on defense. We'll see how that goes. I do like the acquisition of Bradley Chubb. He's a really good rusher, good pass rusher off the edge. I think he's going to be a plus for this team. And I like the secondary better this year. They go out and they get C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who I think is going to help out also with that unit on defense. So there's a little bit of a talent step up. I think there's a coaching step up with the Buffalo Bills. And now I'll hand it over to you. I'll give my final thoughts in a bit. But the over-under again, Buffalo 10.5 over minus $1.20, around even money on the comeback on the under there, Scott.
Yeah, and so the question for me is how quickly will they adjust with these coaching changes and the new defensive coordinator? How it's going to be a little bit tricky, I think, at first. When I look at this team and look at their schedule, they play in a division with a tough Pats team, but then they have the weak Jets and Dolphins, thankfully, for them in their division. But man, when I look at their strength of schedule, by people I respect, is considered to be kind of middle of the pack this year, not too tough. But then when I looked at their schedule, they have, of course, 9 road games this season. So they're one of the teams getting 8 home games, 9 road games. And other than facing those weak Jets and Dolphins teams that are in their division, man, their games are these are all road games, guys. Texans, Rams, Chargers, Vikings, Packers, and Broncos, in addition to the Patriots, of course. There is not a team on that list that has a win total of less than 8.5 wins this season. So and those are road games. So none of those are easy wins. And I know the Bills have a strong offense and a solid offensive line and a good running attack. And then, of course, you got Allen at quarterback. But I worry about their defense. It struggles against the run. And overall, I'm just not comfortable with that front 7. So as I was handicapping them coming into the season, I'm thinking, man, this could be a good over team for us as far as going individually over in their games in the right spots during the season. But back to what I feel about this win total is I just don't trust their defense to get off the field on third downs. I think that's going to be a problem for them. Overall, though, I mean, I like the Bills, but I'm not comfortable with this Bills total. So I have to say I would lean under here, but really this is probably one I'm going to stay away from, Scott. I think it's pegged in this range. This is right about where it should be. I hate to say that I can't give something one way or the other, but I just don't like this one much. I would just lean under, but just barely, because like you said, it's been since 2019 that they have failed to get to at least 11 wins.
Listen, that schedule, I like like you were saying. I mean, I heard people talking about an easier schedule. I'm like, I opened up their schedule a month ago and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Especially early on. I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if the Buffalo Bills are 2-3, 5 games into the season. I know they've got, I think 3 of the first 5 are at home, if I remember correctly, but I've looked at the schedule. I'm like, they could be 2-3 after 5 games. I think, here's the thing. I lean towards 11 wins. So you're leaning towards maybe 10-7. I'm leaning towards 11-6. What I do like, and what I do think is a good bet, is minus $1.25 to win the division. whether they're 10-7 or 11-6. Because again, you mentioned you got the Dolphins, they got the Jets. Both of those teams are still going to stink. And then you got the New England Patriots, who are the Super Bowl hangover losing team, for 2026. They've got issues with Vrabel. I thought they were overvalued last year, the New England Patriots. They had some, listen, give Vrabel credit. He turned around that organization really fast. But again, I don't think they're as good as their wins total. I also don't think they're as good as they were last year. And so I think Buffalo, even if they go 10-7, wins this division. And so at a minus $1.25, that's actually the play I like here more than the over or the under, Scott.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that sounds like a strong play to me there. So good one, Scott.
Let's talk a little baseball. The Field of Dreams game was played on Thursday, and the Phillies got the win 7-1. So the teams were off on Friday after they left the cornfields of Iowa, and they head to Minneapolis. It's the Twins hosting the Phillies Saturday and Sunday. Couple of games to go yet in this series. I know on Saturday, Scott, I'm looking at my line surface. I got like 18 books in front of me. And the Phillies are laying anywhere from $1.45 to $1.55. The total sitting at 8. The teams, again, they were off Friday. This particular matchup on Saturday, you've got Luzardo against Prelip, and then you got Painter and Kramer on Sunday. Your take to kick this thing off, Scott?
Yeah, so Luzardo has allowed 2 earned runs or less in 10 of his last 11 starts, and he's been piling up strikeouts. Prelip, on the other hand, he's allowed 3 earned runs or more in 8 of his last 11 starts. And I saw the Phillies even in the minus 140 range. It's probably has crept up a little bit as of overnight here heading into Saturday. But I still think this is a solid value with the Phillies. They won that Field of Dreams game in Iowa against these Twins. They've won 4 of their last 6 away from home. And the Twins now, guys, have dropped 8 of their last 12. So they've been slumping. And then looking at the Sunday game, Painter and Kramer here in this one. Over his last 3 starts, Painter is finally seeming to adjust to the MLB level. He's allowed a total of just 5 earned runs on only 8 hits in 15 innings of work. I know that Kramer is off of back-to-back solid starts, but the Phillies, so unlike the Twins do not have any experience against Painter. The Phillies do have some experience against Kramer. And he got rocked over his last 4 starts in July. So I'm not sold on him just coming off a couple of good starts. I think Phillies, we might get a reasonable price here on Sunday as well because of Painter's overall high ERA on the season. So we could see some value with the Phillies again on Sunday. I like them actually to potentially here get that sweep of the Twins this weekend.
It's the way I looked at it too. I think they win both of these games, Saturday and Sunday. You mentioned how well Luzardo's been pitching. 2 home runs allowed in 70 plus innings of work on the road or whatever it happens to be now. Just crazy. You go 4 games basically without hitting a homer against Luzardo the way he's pitched in those outings. And also, if you look at what they've done, they're number 1 in Major League Baseball on the road against Southpaws in OPS and in weighted credit plus, and 4th in batting average. Prelip is better at home, obviously, than he is on the road. But I like over that stretch of time where the Phillies have been hitting the ball well against lefties. And I'm talking about right after the All-Star break through, Thursday's action in the Field of Dreams. I just love their offensive numbers over the past 6 weeks or 5 weeks. And I think they get the job done both days. You mentioned Painter. Those last 3 games, how about a 2.94 ERA and an 0.97 whip?
Yes.
Pretty good. And I saw him pitch, and it wasn't fluky. I saw him in one of the last game that he pitched. I was watching a lot of it. It wasn't fluky. He got the job done. So we're both looking at the same thing there for this weekend, with the Phillies probably taking both Saturday and Sunday games.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because the Phillies are pretty heavily dominated with left-handed bats, but they have started to hit the lefties quite well, like you said. And that's going to be another thing that'll help them here on Saturday.
I'm going to go away from the show for my best bet this week, Scott. So get yours ready. I'll talk about mine real quick. I'm looking at the Saturday night NFL preseason clash between the Cowboys and the Seahawks at Lumen Field in Seattle. And right now the Seahawks laying 2.5, the total 38.5. Again, we're cutting this video around 1 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday morning. So that's where the line was at that time. But here's the thing. I know Dallas has a new OC, new offensive coordinator. I love their wide receiving core. I'm a Dak Prescott fan for the most part. The offensive line is supposed to be better this year than it has been in the last couple of years. I get all of that, but these guys are going to play a ton. And I know the new OC wants to put his stamp on turning things around. But again, they're not going to play a lot if at all. There's a great preseason angle. Everybody out there who's been following me all these years knows that I only like angles in preseason and in the playoffs a little bit, but especially in preseason. I really don't get into it during the course of the regular season. And I've mentioned Steve Mackinnon over at VSiN a few times. I do a lot of stuff over at VSiN, and his angles are trustworthy. And basically, you've got a situation when conference opponents face off against each other in preseason. You're talking about a 68% win percentage on the under as long as the total's 37 or more. It went 2-0 on Thursday night, total sitting at 38.5. I think it stays under again. Once again, Scott, it's one of those situations where I know the OC wants to put his stamp on things. They're not going to play these starters very much. So, and by the way, under McDonald, Seattle's defense preseason, they play well and they play hard, and I think they've held their opponents under McDonald to like 18 points per game in preseason action. So I think this game stays under the total. That'll be my best bet for the weekend.
Sounds good. That sounds like a great one, Scott. And I'm going to stay with those Phillies for Saturday as my best bet. One of the big books right now has a 142 on this one. I don't like to lay too much juice, of course, especially for a best bet, guys, but I think this is a reasonable price. We're getting a better price than what I expected here. It could go up. Of course, it could rise some. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But as of overnight Friday, heading into Saturday, we're close to the 140 range, and I really like the Phillies for those reasons I mentioned. I think we're going to get another great start from Luzardo, and I do think the Phillies are going to hit well again, just like they did in that game in Iowa. So that was a nice game there, Scott. I don't know if you caught any of that, but it was a nice scene there. So, and especially for Phillies fans, they got to enjoy that one. So a few balls going into the cornfields there. So,
yeah, good stuff. He's Scott Rickenbach. I'm Scott Spreitzer. Check out all of our work each and every day over at DocSports.com. You can find our plays on our homepages, individual homepages over at Doc Sports. And of course, check out our videos each and every day of the week. Be sure to subscribe, helps us out, and you're privy to all the videos all the guys do at DocSports.com every day. And of course, don't mind if you hit that smash button, hit that like button. Smash that like button is what I'm trying to say to Rickenbach. Quit trying to confuse me. He's Scott. I'm Scott. We're DocSports.com. Let's put him in the win column, everybody.